Help us keep our news show on the air by becoming a sponsor. You can buy sponsorship by calling 970-677-4119. That's 970-677-4119. Now for the news. Hi, I am Devin, and here's our first story from the Journal-Herald. Legislature sets aside $38 million for affordable housing. The Colorado legislature passed two measures this session that will provide millions of dollars each year to help ease the state's affordable housing crisis. In 2020, the two bills could set aside $38 million, which could increase annually after the legislative session ended last week. The bills are headed to Governor Jerry Polis for signature. Together, they are the biggest news source of very badly needed funding for affordable housing we have seen in many years, said State Rep. Mike Wiseman Diora, who sponsored one of the bills. The funding could help build housing units for residents whose income qualifies for down payment assistance and other housing programs. This year, the state set aside $15 million to fund affordable housing projects, so the new funding will more than double what the state can grant to housing projects, said Ellen Wicken, Executive Director of Housing Colorado, the state's Affordable Housing Association. It is possible the first affordable homes funded by the new revenue will be finished in 2022. Thousands of affordable housing units are needed in southwest Colorado as the cost of renting or owning a home continues to rise. The median prices of a home in Durango last year was $399,000. A price out of reach for 52% of households in town, according to the report released this week by Region 9 Economic Development District of Southwest Colorado in Bayfield. The median home price was $315,000, which is out of reach to more than 41% of families in the community. The staff at Housing Solutions for the Southwest continues to see demand for affordable housing rise each year, said Executive Director Elizabeth Salkine. I'm not seeing any level off, she said. She is supportive of the measures because in the past, state funding for affordable housing has been inconsistent. Thinking just to have a long-term set funding source is a huge step for Colorado's Soundkins. In the short-term housing bill 1322 will provide the most funding. It will set aside $30 million annually from unclaimed property trust funds for 3 fiscal years until 2023. Fiscal, whatever. For affordable housing, the fund holds lost or forgotten property or assets owned by individuals or businesses in perpetually or until they are claimed. The new revenue from HB 1322 could be used for a variety of projects such as down payment assistance, grants, and loans to purchase land and to repair and replace and dispose of mobile homes, among other purposes. Another measure, House Bill 1245, will provide $8 million for affordable housing in 2020 and $9 million in 2021. And in later years, the bill could provide the full amount of the revenue. It will generate between $45 to $50 million annually to housing. The bill will generate revenue by decreasing the amount of money retail businesses are allowed to hold back to cover the administrative costs of paying taxes. HB 1245 was originally intended to dedicate all the revenue it will generate to housing. However, in the final days of the legislature, Polis requested lawmakers to redirect a large portion of the money to the state's new reinsurance program for 2 years. Wilkins said, the reinsurance program is designed to help cut costs for those who purchase insurance through Connect for Health Colorado because they are not insured through their employer. The revenue source for reinsurance and housing will come from some of the largest retailers in the state by reducing how much they can hold back to cover costs associated with paying taxes such as staff time. Businesses are currently allowed to hold back 3.33% of sales tax they collect to pay for the administrative required to collect and pay sales taxes. The bills would increase the amount of business could hold back up to 4%, but it would introduce a new 1,000 cap according to the approved legislation. Giant retailers would no longer be able to hold back hundreds of thousands of dollars to cover administrative costs, and that would generate new revenue. The stories from the Durango Herald. Honoring fallen law enforcement. Law enforcement from the Southwest Colorado honored their fallen in Durango this weekend, recognizing people in the past century who gave their lives in service to their communities. Dozens of police officers, sheriff deputies, and tribal law enforcement paraded up Main Avenue on Saturday to the amphitheater at the Durango Community Recreation Center for a ceremony recognizing more than half a dozen law enforcement officers who died in line of duty in Southwest Colorado. State Patrol Captain Adrian Discroll, Durango Police Chief Bob Brammer, La Plata County Sheriff Sean Smith, and Southern Ute Division of Gaming Investigator Gilbert Peralez accept roses and banners in remembrance of each of the fallen. 7 officers fired rifles 3 times in recognition of the dead. I hope people remember that when we put our uniforms on in the morning, we may not be coming home, and it's for them, Peralez said while walking the Amos River Trail with other law enforcement, their families, friends, and those who supported them. Peralez, who's been in law enforcement for 20 years, supervised Anthony Clyde's Tony Arculetro at the Southern Ute Gaming Division. Died suddenly of heart attack in 2013, just one day after his 62nd birthday. Peralez said Archuleta to have been in law enforcement for 33 years, many of which were spent with Durango Police Department. Connor Lodi, a patrol officer at DPD who has been an officer for 2.5 years, said the ceremony reminded him of the impact law enforcement has in the Southwest Colorado and the legacy that will live on after he's gone. He knew that going into law enforcement, he can't change the entire community, but if he could affect the lives of just one person, he said that would be enough. I hope people see us as human beings, not just figures, Lolandi said. People are afraid of cops and think we don't have emotions or empathy when it's completely the opposite. Derek Campbell, a deputy with the Bayfield Marshal's office, said it was good to see members of the community at the memorial service. It shows people had care, he said. I hope this helps the community realize how many of us are out there putting our lives on the line for the community, he said. We're not the bad guy. This story is from the Journal. World War II era Navajo code talker Fleming Begay Sir dies at 97. The Navajo Nations have announced that World War II era Navajo code talker Fleming Begay has died. Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez said Begay died Friday in Chinle, Arizona. He was 97. Chile, Arizona. He was 97. The cause of death was not disclosed. Begay was among hundreds of Navajo who served the Marine Corps, using a code based in their language to outsmart the Japanese. According to the Navajo Nation, Begay served as a code talker from 1943 to 1945 and fought in the Battle of Tarawa, and spent battered of Tinia. He spent a year in a naval hospital after being wounded. Begay later ran a general store in Chile. President Donald Trump honored Begay and two other Navajo Code talkers at the White House in November 2017. The stories from the Denver Post. Applying maximum pressure. Trump faces burgeoning crisis overseas. President Donald Trump ran for office vowing to extricate the United States from entanglement abroad, but his administration now finds itself juggling three nation security crises overseas, with Iran, Venezuela, and Northern Korea, while confronting China over a possible trade war. This situation, partly a function of uncontrollable events, is also the result of Trump's going big or going home approach to foreign affairs, which has led his administration to apply maximum pressure to multiple nations simultaneously rather than prioritize one over the other to take incremental steps. The maximalist tactics at times have raised the prospect of big breakthroughs. One of Trump's hopes to take the campaign trail for his re-election, particularly when it comes to North Korea. At the same time, it has brought what former policymakers describe as a great risk of crisis and miscalculations, as well as possible distractions from the primary goal of the administration's national security strategy, countering Russia and China. The president's apparent tendency to brinksmanship brings with it a degree of danger, and it is even more dangerous when it's combined with pattern of bluffing, said James Dobbins, a former top diplomat who is now senior fellow at the RAND Corporation. Whether Trump is willing to pursue military action, which he and his aides have referenced in public remarks, is a long-looming question that has long been vocally skeptical of American military force abroad and at times has expressed concern about the more hawkish impulse of his national security advisor John Bolton. Strategy experts cite the risk of overextending U.S. rhetoric in conflict with possible military outcomes if the president isn't willing to back words with actions. It's kind of like the not terrible, capable bully who likes pushing people around and teasing them, but when push comes to shove is nervous to actually get into a bar fight, said Mara Karlin, a former Pentagon strategist during the Obama administration and a professor at Johns Hopkins University. Trump's administration officials dispute that the president is engaging in any reckless brinkmanship. They point out that Trump and his top advisors primarily voiced Washington's desire for a peaceful resolution to the confrontations in North Korea, Iran, and Venezuela. And note that he has reinvigorated the diplomatic track with Pyongyang brokering the suspension of menacing intercontinental ballistic missile tests. This past week, Trump extended an olive branch to Iran, saying, "I like to see them call me," even as his top aides lambasted the country, and the U.S. military said it would respond to any attack on American interests with unrelenting force. The administration continues to leverage diplomacy, pursue economic pressure, and enforce existing laws to deter malignant actors seeking to threaten stability and security. A senior administrator official said the statement, "The United States remains prepared to respond to any threats against America or our allies." The official defended the efficacy and rationale of the administration's approach. The United States is responding to legitimate threats against America and our allies and partners with highly effective maximum pressure campaigns, the official said. The possibility that Trump's resolve could be tested has increased in recent days. In Asia, progress in talks with North Korea leader Kim Jong-un showed signs of backsliding as the United States seized a North Korean vessel allegedly used for evading sanctions and suspended efforts to recover remains of American military personnel killed during the Korean War. Pyongyang for its part, carried out new short-range missile tests, raising the possibility of a return to intercontinental ballistic missile testing, yet suspended after talks with Trump. South America top administration officials suggested the possibility of military action against Venezuela after a failed insurrection by the U.S.-backed opposition took officials in Washington off guard. The U.S. military sent a hospital ship to the nation's coast in between preparing for contingencies should Nicolas Maduro's government falls. Perhaps the most concerning developments arose out of the Middle East. A year after Trump pulled out of Iranian nuclear accord, Tehran announced that it would stop complying with some elements of the agreement, promising to enrich uranium to a higher level than allowed under the treaty. The decision once again raised the threat of nuclear proliferation in one of the most unstable parts of the world. Meanwhile, the Pentagon dispatches a carrier strike group, a bomber force, and a Patriot missile battery to the Middle East after receiving intelligence suggests that Iran could be preparing an attack against U.S. troops or interests in the region. As the crisis of North Korea, Venezuela, and Iran unfold, one risk is that the Trump administration will lose focus on a national security strategy that calls for concentrating primarily on countering Russia and China. In recent weeks, Trump's top national security officials include Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Bolton have spent most of their public messaging time talking about those three situations rather than about long-term threats. James Carafano, a scholar at the Heritage Foundation, said he didn't see the developments as a drift away from the strategy, but rather as inevitable confrontations, nothing that the strategy shifts was less about abandoning them and more about lessening focus on transitional terrorism. A big part of Venezuela is the U.S. showing the Russian and Chinese it's going to maintain dominance in the Western Hemisphere, he said. Iran is always part of the mix because it's chief destabilizer in the Middle East, and North Korea directly threatens the United States. A senior State Department official said dealing with these brewing crises hasn't taken away from the Trump administration's focus on Beijing and Moscow. The United States has tried to curb the expansion of Chinese firms such as Huawei and China Mobile. Albert did with mixed success. Washington has called out the alleged mistreatment of China's Muslim minority popular and blocked certain Chinese investments. The State Department official noted the wide array of sanctions against Russia for interfering in the 2016 election, poisoning a former Russian spy in Britain to intervening in Ukraine, although the punishments largely came at the urging of Congress. The official spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss administration strategy. Trump administration has worked relatively close with allies on its approach to Venezuela, but it has broken with allies in Europe over Iran and at times have clashed with South Korea over how to handle talks with the Kim regime. The world is changing, and the United States' ability to manage things in the way it used to, believing we have the wisdom and foresight and the resources to tackle all of things simultaneously, and other countries were inclined to go along. That's definitely changed, said Chris Prebill, Vice President for Foreign Policy Studies and the Cato Institute. Against the backdrop of confrontations with North Korea, Venezuela, and Iran, Trump has also been applying economic pressure to China, most recently hiking U.S. tariffs on $200 billion in Chinese goods. Apart from high-profile strike on Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad's Air Force in 2017, over chemical weapons used, and the continuation of operations in Afghanistan, Syria, and Iran, Trump has largely been skeptical of taking new military actions with China. However, he has demonstrated a comfort with employing blunt economic force. The one source of some comfort is that Trump's does seem to be risk adverse when it comes to military actions, and I'm sure the U.S. military are reinforcing him in that regard. Dobbins said, the more dangerous of these situations in the short to medium term is probably the Chinese one, since that's an area where he has been less risk averse. Now for our dumb laws. Our dumb laws segments are actual laws still in the books in many states, cities, and municipalities. This means that these laws are technically still legal. Dumb laws in Alaska. Moose may not be viewed from an airplane. While it is legal to shoot bears, waking a sleeping bear for the purpose of taking a photograph is prohibited. It is considered an offense to push a live moose out of a moving plane. In Anchorage, no one may tie their pet dog to the roof of a car. For all you would-be pranksters out there, it is illegal to string a wire across any road. Persons may not live in a trailer as is being hauled across the city. Clowns beware. In Fairbanks, it is considered an offense to feed alcohol beverages to moose. In Haines, in Haines, a person may not carry a concealed slingshot if that person has received the appropriate license. It is against the law to attempt to break any law in Title IX of the Code, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare. Employers of bars may not leave their bartender serve while they are drunk themselves. In Juneau, owners of flamingos may not let their pets into barbershops. Buildings that preserve scenic vistas are awarded bonus points by the government. In Nome, one may not roam the city with a bow and arrows. In Soldotna, persons may not allow attractive nuisance to exist. Now for our weather report. Our current weather data comes from DCTV weather station located in beautiful downtown Dove Creek. The current temperature is 74 degrees. Today's high was 75 degrees. The low was 41 degrees. The barometer is at 29.74 inches and steadily falling. Humidity is at 15%. Wind is between 1 and 7 miles per hour from the southeast. Gust has been up to 19 miles per hour. There was 0.00 of an inch moisture in the DCTV weather station today. Moisture for the month is 0.77 of an inch. Moisture accumulation for the year is 6.73 of an inch. Now for the big map, Kerosene National Weather Service. Rain is on the coast of Washington and Oregon. Right up all there. There's a section of rain and snow in Colorado here. New Mexico to Texas. There is thunderstorms, rain and thunderstorms, with severe thunderstorms right here in Texas. The center of the country, there is random areas of rain and thunderstorms. Randomness. The East Coast has rain and thunderstorms with the possibility of snow in the Vermont area. Now for our exclusive DCTV 5-day forecast. Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high of 73 and low of 47. Wednesday is also mostly sunny with a high of 75 and low of 50. Thursday is going to be breezy with a high of 72, low of 43. Thunderstorms is possibly on Friday with a high of 58 and low of 37. Saturday is also thunderstorms with a high of 58 and low of 38. Now for the SNOTEL report, which is the amount of snowpack in the mountains across the state. We hope this will be helpful for our farmers. Here in the southwest, we got 176% of normal, which is still pretty good. We need it. Now for a climate change report. CO2 carbon dioxide is considered a greenhouse gas and is one of the principal causes of climate change. CO2 traps heat in the atmosphere, which causes climate instability. This results in significant variations worldwide of moist and hot and cold temperatures, but the general climate trend is that the planet is slowly warming. Therefore, it is important that we report the CO2 changes. The following are the CO2 numbers in parts per million. Last week, it's 414.37. 2 weeks ago is 414.32. Last year, 410.77. 10 years ago, 389.79. 50 years ago, is 327.34. Thank you, Dr. Peter Tanz of National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, and Michael McGee of the CO2.Earth Network for this information. Remember, you can help keep our Kids News Show on the air by becoming a sponsor. You can buy a sponsorship by calling 970-677-4119. That's 970-677-4119. Thank you. And back to our news director.